How you doing, man?
Good, brother. How are you?
I'm doing good. It has been much too long since we've seen each other, since we've talked, since we've interacted in any sort of capacity.
True.
I think the last time I saw you was on set of, what was that?
Booked on the Weekends.
Yeah, Booked on the Weekends.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was a good film. I liked it a lot.
It was. Did you see the finished product?
Yeah, I did, dude.
What did you think of it?
I love it. So in the beginning, I don't know if they're actually watching this. There's a couple scenes that the lighting is a tiny bit off.
Yeah.
With my scenes, like the background is kind of blown out and stuff. I think that was just because of the time of day.
Yeah.
And then the audio for a couple of my parts was a tiny bit off too.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, your acting on it was phenomenal.
Oh, thanks, man.
Like especially towards the end when like the emotional parts are happening.
Yeah.
That it was phenomenal.
Oh,
like,
thank you.
There's not many people I know of that can pull off something of that magnitude or that well.
I appreciate that.
So I have my buddy John Pene. Is it Pene?
Pene.
Pene. Okay. I was always confused on how to
Most
say
people
that.
are.
John Pene.
Yeah.
So you are an actor.
Yes, sir.
You are an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more about you. Obviously, I don't really know that much personal stuff about you. I met you a while back on my first big project for Speechless, and you were an extra in that. And I've seen you go from that role to just blowing up.
Yeah, man.
So
It's been a journey.
tell me about like who are you? What all do you do?
I'm 28 years old. I'm a dad. You know, I have a 5-year-old son, beautiful girlfriend.
Go and talk a little bit closer to the mic.
Beautiful girlfriend, and basically I was born in Africa, Central Africa, in the Congo, a little town called Kalemi. Then we moved to Lubumbashi. From there, I moved to Johannesburg, South Africa. Went to high school there. Started playing sports, played basketball, and that took me to Phoenix. So from there, I went to Phoenix, played for South Mountain Community College, played 2 years of basketball there.
Okay, so it was basketball that brought you here then?
Yeah, basketball and school. To my parents, it's school. But I wanted to play ball, so I came out here. And since then I've just been being a dad. My son was born in 2017, so that was right after I played my second year. And I had to choose between being a dad or pursuing a scholarship or trying to get a scholarship in a different state. So it kind of felt like the end of the road for me there. I knew I was going to be a dad. I was going to choose dad over anything
100%.
else. So that's how I ended up just staying here and became an entrepreneur. Started learning about business, and my girlfriend at the time introduced me to a brother-in-law.
Okay.
And he introduced me to real estate, and that's how I started making my money. Just learning tricks and trades and finding properties for investors and getting an assignment fee from that. And that's how I made my living. And then in 2022 is when I started acting, like full blast, like pushing my actual acting career.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what pushed that initial part of wanting to act, like going from basketball, which in itself can be a huge career? Like, did you have aspirations for like the NBA and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I wanted to go to the league, and I thought I was decent. Like, I thought I was decent, and with some work, I felt like I could have possibly, like, if the stars lined up, I could have gotten the shot. But that was the dream, man. That was the dream at the time.
Really?
Yeah, and I was kind of heartbroken when I had to let it go too. You know, it was tough, but I guess that passion was still in me. Like that desire to want to see if I can make it to a certain level where I'm considered to be great at something, right? And I was watching Collateral Beauty.
Oh, I love that movie.
With Will Smith.
Oh, amazing movie. I love it. It almost made me cry.
Yeah.
I was so close to crying in that.
What's your favorite scene?
Oh, man. I think it's towards It's like not in the middle, but not the end. It's right when the realization happens.
Yes.
That's my favorite scene. Of just like the realization of everything. That's like when the whole movie is kind of getting pieced together. Like obviously, if anyone hasn't seen it, I don't want to give it away. But like just the realization of the whole concept of everything. That was what got me. I was like, ooh, the heartstrings are tugged.
I feel you. Because I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's the exact same scene. I was watching that, and right in the street when Will meets death.
Yeah.
And they have that scene, and he's been running from dealing with these emotions throughout the whole first half of the film, and then it hits, and then you just feel like everything just comes pouring out, and I was moved by that, man. I was like, and I love watching films. Like I enjoy watching movies. That's like my go-to thing.
Oh, me too.
So when I saw that, I was like, man, that's it. I wanna do this like, for a living. Like I'm ready to do this. And
okay.
that's
So
how
was
I
that
started.
that was the movie then
That's
that
the
made you
scene.
decide to start acting?
Yep. Like made me commit to it. Like I always wanted to do it. I did little things here and there.
Okay.
But made me commit, like as an actor, wanting to be like a professional, full-time actor. That was the day.
So what is your primary goal then behind acting? Because you don't seem like the kind of guy that's in it because you want to be rich and famous and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like there's another type of like underlying goal or road that you want to chase down with this whole acting thing.
Absolutely. Like at the core of it, I want to get to a point where I build a brand that allows me to have relationships to start telling stories on screen from like the African perspective. Like there's so many like growing up, like I love Superman. I love all the superheroes.
Yeah.
But not until Black Panther did I see someone that looks like me.
Yes.
You know
absolutely.
what I mean? So that makes a big difference. Like I don't want to make it about like race or anything, but there's just something that happens psychologically when you can connect by seeing someone that looks like you in a role like Superman or a superhero role.
Absolutely.
That changes how far you think of yourself, and that's what I want to be able to do, because where I come from, I was considered to be the oddball for thinking this way, for wanting to pursue acting, for wanting to play basketball. Everybody goes to school, gets a degree, you become a doctor. My parents expected me to go that route. You know?
Oh boy.
So it's like, for me, wanting to make this normal for little kids that are like me, like that are growing up in like the dirt of Africa, and they watch a superhero and like, I want to do that. I can do that one day. So, and there's so many beautiful stories in Africa about like warriors and tribes and stories like that the world should see, that the world should hear, because they're just beautiful stories that I grew up with. So the goal ultimately is to get to that point where I have built enough of a brand, made enough money, and have enough relationships that people are willing to invest in telling those stories.
Okay.
And I want to sit in a theater watching those stories the same way I'm excited to watch, Batman, Returns, or Superman, Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Like, I want that. And if I can do that in my lifetime, then I think I'll be happy.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
So what was your family and parents' reaction when this whole thing went down, when you came to the States to play basketball, became a father, and then decided to start pursuing acting as your full-time career? Like, how did they react?
Brutal, man.
Really?
It was brutal. But I feel like by the time I chose to do acting, I had done so many stressful things to my parents that by that point it was like a soft blow. Like, like they were like, okay, we don't know where it's gonna go. Like they weren't on board with it, but it wasn't as bad as like me starting out basketball. That was worse. Like when
chasing the basketball career.
Yeah.
Really?
Because you don't understand. Like outside of America, you don't blow up. Like basketball is nothing. Like the NBA is where the money's at.
Right.
So everywhere else, no one else knows that. So my parents were like, "What? You're gonna stop school and pursue it?" They were like, "No." They hated it. I think there was a point where my uncle I came back from practice like after school, late night, like around 7 o'clock. First time I came back around that time.
Right.
Flipped out. And he was like, "Where were you?" I was like, "I was practicing." And he took my basketball and drove a knife through it.
No.
He drove a knife through it, just cut the ball, threw it down. And he was like, "That's what I think of your basketball." And
Really?
man, that broke me. Like, I remember that day, man. I was broken, man.
Oh my God.
That broke me, yeah.
Dang.
But that was the first experience of that, and battling my parents back and forth.
Right.
Trying to justify why I believe in what I'm doing, why I should pursue it. Like, that was brutal. I had to sometimes lie when I was going on tournaments.
Yeah.
And tell them I was going on like a school trip.
No.
So that I could go and play. That's the only way they would let me.
And did you have like prolonged trips that were like days on end?
Yeah.
So what would you tell them in those kinds of
Like,
instances?
I'll be like, it's like, luckily for me, there's like academic activities that I also got myself involved in high school.
Okay.
And it was normal for them to do trips. So I could be like, we're doing a trip with them. And
So just like a school function then.
school function type of thing. And they'll be like, "Oh, okay, sounds good." And then I'll go and play ball.
And was there like costs associated with playing basketball? Or was it just... So how did you pay for all that stuff? Just be in it?
I would just save up, like, whenever I could. Like, getting uniforms and stuff like that. Like, I guess my trick was just telling my dad I needed something, like, for school.
Oh, okay.
And then I would use the money to pay for whatever I needed to pay, like uniforms and stuff like that. Yeah.
So when did they finally realize that? Like, did they ever find out about these laws?
Yeah, they're finding out now. but at some point, my dad came along and he wanted to understand why I was so passionate about it. Like, for the first time ever, he like sat down and was like, "I want to understand," and that's why I explained to him. And because I wanted to actually play in the NBA, the best way for me to do that was to get into a school. So I had to get my grades up. So then when he started to see the correlation between me having good grades and playing basketball, he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna let you do it as long as you're getting your grades."
Yeah.
So that's how they came along, and I actually came here through grades instead of a scholarship.
Really?
So I came here because I graduated, did my interview with the embassy. They gave me my visa, and then when I came out here, I started going to different schools, and basically going to open gyms until I got picked up.
Yeah. You just went to like every gym
I just went to
possible?
every gym. I went to Glendale Community College. I went to South Mountain. I went to Chandler Gilbert, and at some point I joined a prep school. And
Really?
we would just play all the junior colleges in the valley.
So would it just be like little club leagues and stuff that you would join until
Yeah.
finally like a recruiter for one of the college teams came and was like, "Hey, I want you"?
Yeah, and I got it like straight after playing a game. It was like an exhibition game that they did, like a jamboree that they had at South Mountain Community College, and I just went off. And then after that, the coach came and was like, "We got a spot for you. You want to come on board?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely."
And which school is that?
At South Mountain
South Mountain.
Community College. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
And so that was the last professional team that you were
That's
part
the last
of?
one. Yeah. That's the last one. And that, I think that year they won the regional, but we lost in the national.
Dang.
So, yeah.
So what do you think was like the huge driving force, like with all the backlash and all of like the push and pull of your parents, like going as far as even like destroying a basketball? What do you think was like the driving force to still just continue going? Like, did you just want to be in the NBA that bad, or was there like other driving force behind wanting to play basketball so bad that you were willing to go to all these lengths to continue playing?
At the core of it, it comes from like from a very young age. Like I was surrounded by, even my own parents. I always had to almost prove my worth. Like, I was, from a very young age, I knew I was different from my brother. I have an older brother who's more of like the example child. He's about school. He's about doing nothing. So he's basically, I think he's my parents' favorite. But I know I was different from that, and the mindset and the way people approach things has just never resonated with me.
Right.
And being shamed and being denied love and acceptance because I was different in that way. That just created a fire in me. It created a fire that made me want to prove wrong, like to prove that narrative wrong. And I told myself that I would become, as I am with what I believe that I have as assets and values, I would make a life that no one that went the academic route could do, whether it's financial, whether it's how much they impact people with it. And I guess that became a source of almost like stubbornness for me. It's like I have a laser focus on that desire.
To just be the best.
To just be able to prove the narrative that who I am isn't worth something. Because that's what was placed upon me from a young age. That believing and trusting these instincts that I have is going to lead me to being a failure and poor and not being able to provide for my family, because I wasn't going the traditional route, because I wasn't going the school route, because I wasn't doing what everybody else was doing, what the crowd was doing. And that's something that I don't know why it's so personal for me, but it's really personal.
Well, I mean, it has to be that like, in order for us to persist that much, it has to be more than just a surface level thing. It has to be that kind of personal thing, especially when you get that much backlash and push and pull and that much no. I feel like it has to be so much more than just a surface level thing. It has to be something that comes from within, and something that's just that key in you that's driving you forward.
Absolutely.
It can't just be like, oh, I just wanted to play basketball. I just wanted to get rich. It has to be something that's like you're proving something more than even just other people. You're proving to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of all this.
Absolutely.
So then why basketball? Why not acting from the start, or why not another thing? Like, what was it about basketball specifically?
See, the way I got into basketball was my uncle just came home. He's like, don't you want to like do something except coming back home every day? I grew up playing soccer, and that just never felt right.
Really?
Yeah, it just never felt right with my legs and stuff. But with basketball, like, I felt like I could be good at it. I could be good at it. And I remember the first time I showed up to court, some of the guys that were already playing there, the senior boys and stuff, like, we started playing, and they were trash talking, like like they were obviously crossing you over and like making you look stupid. And some part of me was like, you know what, I actually want to be good enough just to rub it in their face. Like, that's the something that, I don't know, that's how I am.
Yeah.
There's something about me that likes, like, whenever I get undervalued, I get fired up. Like if anybody just makes me feel like I'm not good enough for something, I take that so personally that I have to be the best at it, just to get that satisfaction of knowing that that I'm not good at it. Like, it's petty.
No, I get it.
It's so petty.
Well, I'm the same thing. It's like, growing up, I was always the smallest. I was always the shortest. I was always the weakest. I also grew up as the younger brother. And my older brother, I don't want to say he was the example child, but he was the one, like, he was captain of his sports teams and stuff. He was the one that all the girls liked. He was... A lot of pressure, man. It was like, he was the one that was living this dream life and stuff. And I had to live up to, like, I literally remember... He came to live with me and my mom for a little while, and so he went to my middle school growing up. I'm from this town, not here, but like in Flagstaff. I'm from there, and so I knew like everybody there. He was there for literally a week, and that's when like I think he had to go back to Kingman, where he's from.
Okay.
And in that 1 week, towards the end, I was getting on the school bus, and I had 4 girls come up to me, and I was thinking, yes, this is my chance. I'm finally popular. They come up to me, hey, where's your brother?
Oh, man.
I can't tell you how bad that stung. I was just like, oh, I don't think he's going to be coming back. I think he transferred back home. And they're like, the disappointment on their face. And I was just like,
I'm here.
Like, I'm still here. Hi, how you doing? Like, I know my brother's not here, but, and so I have that same brutal, kind of like underdog syndrome is what I like to call it. It's where you have the underdog feeling, and so everything, like, you have the need to want to like prove yourself in every situation, prove that you're not this weak small kid, prove that you have the ability to do what they can all do.
Yeah.
That you're not worth less than they are.
Yeah.
Just because of your size, just because of your age, or just because of all this other stuff. Like, that was literally what was driving me my entire life.
Absolutely.
Is being picked last for sports stuff because I was small or something, or having a specific role because of this. Like, if I was in football, they were going to have me being the runner. Like, I don't really know a whole lot about football, but because I had the agility, because I grew up in dance, because I did this, of course I'm not going to be the guy that's tackling people in the linebacker, but I can run faster than anyone on the field.
Exactly, yeah.
And so, but for me, I was like, well, why can't I do something like a linebacker? And obviously, for physics reasons and for obvious reasons I couldn't, but it was just like that factor of like, I can do this too. Just because you can doesn't mean I can't.
Exactly.
And so I definitely get that whole power, not power, but like that whole
underdog.
Yeah, that wanting to prove that you are worth as much, if not even more, than they're giving you credit for.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the core of it, it's almost like it's not even about them anymore. Like, at the core of it, for me, it's become about my own inner critic.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that voice in my head that I spent 24 hours with, that's talking to me and saying, "Oh, you're not good enough for this. What do you think you're gonna do? Like, you think you're gonna do that?" It's almost proving him wrong.
Right.
You know, that's who I'm battling with.
It becomes
It's
personal
like,
at that point.
That personal, because I wanna prove to myself, that version of myself that accepts these narrative, that's not true. Like, we're capable. Like, we can do that. And that fire just makes me want to work harder than everybody else. Makes me want to do things that everybody else is not willing to do, and take chances and risks that others won't do.
Exactly.
Get comfortable with that, and that's what made me choose basketball in that moment. And I tell you, I was on that court all the time.
Yeah.
Like, all the time, and then just took off from there and started knocking them out one at a time.
Yeah. No, I've seen, honestly, some of the biggest underdog stories come from basketball. I mean, Michael Jordan himself, he was cut from his high school team.
Yep.
Anyone else in any other career and stuff would have been like, all right, I guess basketball's just not for me. For him, no. He got that, and then he just worked even harder to become the greatest player in history.
Yep.
I know that there's a lot of other players. I don't really follow too much in sports. But there's so many instances like that where, like, they'll get cut, or they didn't get chosen for first round draft pick or something, or they didn't get chosen for this. And I've seen some of the most discipline come from basketball players. I can't remember which players it was, but there were different stories of, like, being in college and they didn't go to parties or anything. They were like, while you guys are doing this, I have a career to chase.
Same.
I have a future to chase. So they're the ones that were in the gym instead of going to these parties. They're the ones that were going to bed on time, getting good grades, treating their bodies right and stuff. And then later on, that translated into their later lives.
Exactly.
And I feel like it's kind of an issue-ish with me, especially, like, my girlfriend sees one part of me that, like, oh, why don't you like to have fun? Why don't you do this? And it's something, like, against her or anything like that. And honey, if you're watching this, there's no shots being taken. But for me, because I had that underdog feeling, and, like, I had some time to have fun when I was a kid, but it's almost that FOMO feeling, that feeling of missing out. And I have always had that fear of, like, if I mess around too much right now, I'm not going to be able to get the best of what life has to offer later. I have to be willing to sacrifice a little bit more now so that I can take a little bit more later. And that was a huge driving force for me as well. So I definitely respect the absolute crap out of that, because
I appreciate that.
That's a huge thing that I even deal with, like, all these times, like, out of all the entrepreneurs and stuff that I've met and business people that I've met, obviously they're part of the quote-unquote 1%. But part of that is you have to be willing to do what 99% of the population isn't willing to do to be part of that 1%.
Exactly, yeah.
In acting, my coach constantly reminds us the fact of, in the acting industry, in, like, the union thing, only about, I think it was 5% of actors make enough for benefits, which is I think $15,000 a year, $25,000 a year. Obviously, there's a lot of movies that pay well more than $15,000 to $25,000 per role.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it's that kind of statistic that almost scares me, but it's also a driving factor. It's like, well, you have to be willing to be better and work harder than 5% of the population, or at least to be in that 5%. Because if not, if you're working just as hard or doing just as much as that 95% of the whole world, that's where you're going to be sitting. And that's the driving factor that was instilled in me from a young age. Was like, okay, people normally with 9 to 5 want to wake up, go to work, come home, watch TV, eat dinner, maybe do whatever for an hour, and then go to bed. They don't want to go home, eat, go to the gym, work until 10 or 11 at night, and then rinse and repeat that process. And obviously, the second option isn't as appealing as the first option. Everyone wants to do that first option because it's the easiest thing. You just go to work.
It feels good.
Yeah, exactly. Versus the other one, it teaches more, though. It might not be as fun, but it teaches that discipline aspect, which is what a lot of people end up lacking. And because that discipline aspect is so minute in them, they don't end up skyrocketing, and they end up living this mediocre life, I feel like, and then still blaming the rest of the world, saying like, oh, that's just a fantasy life, that's just a fairy tale life, that doesn't actually happen. But then it's like, when that other person, that's kind of a big thing with this whole podcast that I really liked, especially like, yes, I do want to interview some A-list actors and some huge entrepreneurs and stuff, because the life that they present, they are obviously part of like the 1%.
Absolutely.
But then when you hear about their stories, they've also done 1% worthy stuff. They're the ones that were like, oh, so what did you do? Like Elon Musk. Obviously, he's part of the 1%. He's rich as hell. But he was also living in his office for the first
not many people would do that.
Exactly.
You want to live in your garage or...
Exactly. Steve Jobs, he was doing his own thing, building out of his garage. They were willing to do something that the 1% was only willing to do. And so they got results that only 1% of people get. That's my philosophy. But I'm also kind of against the whole grind set thing. A lot of people are like, oh, grind set, you have to work 22 hours, sleep 1 hour, and then do that. And I'm like, no, we're not robots, though. You have to take care of yourself. You have to be, like, yes, there's a lot of sacrifice that comes with it, but you have to know how to balance the sacrifice.
100%.
With acting, I mean, for me, I balance multiple jobs, and that does get very difficult. But for me, I had to learn how to cut things like social life a little bit. Obviously, I'm still a little bit social, but I'm extremely picky on my social life, on the people I hang out with, people 100%. I give my time to. I'm much more intentional, which has led me, honestly, to an even happier lifestyle. What kind of stuff do you do for, like, discipline, or, like, that you've... Because obviously, I know you're a very disciplined guy. In order to get to where you're at, and for the dedication I see that you have to your craft, you have to be extremely disciplined. How did you learn that discipline?
Basketball, like you said.
Yeah,
it
was basketball.
It was basketball, and the one thing that I'm grateful about that is that now when I look at it, I see why I was so into that. You know, because sometimes when you're in the moment, you don't see where it's going. You know? And you know, God always has a bigger vision.
Right.
The full picture, and now I see that my discipline and work ethic comes from that.
Okay.
Like, you know, the mindset of doing the hard stuff first. Because that's how I grew up. Like it was almost like second nature for me.
Right.
Doing basketball for almost 10 to 12 years, it's like second nature. Like you get in, you do the suicide first before you get to pick up a ball.
Right.
So that's the same mindset that I apply when it comes to like everything else in my life. It's sometimes, like you said, it's balance. Like you know, it's about finding that middle ground where I'm not being too hard on myself or too hard on the people that I care about or the people that actually invest in and love me, and also knowing when I have to, you know, put my head down and get to work type of thing. That's where that discipline comes from for the most part.
So who do you think taught it to you most? Because that's the one thing. So I know there's a lot of rags to riches stories, and a lot of people are like, oh, my mom had to work 3 jobs to support us and stuff, and I'm like, well, the good thing about that is she taught you what a disciplined person could. You think that she wanted to work 3 jobs to do all this?
Yeah.
No, she did it because she knew she had to, and that's the definition of discipline. is doing something that you know you have to, even though you know, or like, even though you don't want to.
Yeah.
So who do you think in your life you learn discipline from the most?
Like, I would say my dad had been that. Like, he would never spend time telling me things like that, but I just watched him do certain things. Like, when I was 11, we lost our home, and I saw him go from having money and losing his job in the same week.
Wow.
Right? And then the house burns down. So now we have nothing. Like, all the savings that he had back then as cash got burned up in the house. So now we move into a lot that my mom had bought, just 2-bedroom shack, and then watching him build that into a house that the whole family lives in till this day.
Dang.
So I don't think I got to see the suffering aspect of it, but I saw him consistently keeping his head up, going after things.
Yeah.
But I left my parents when I was 14.
14?
So, yeah.
Wow.
So they sent me to live with my uncle in Johannesburg. So when I was there, Kobe, when I started playing basketball, became a very detailed description of that mindset, like the Mamba mindset type of thing. So if I have to go to someone that really drilled it inside my head, like, I would say that Kobe had a big influence on that. But my dad, watching him grind, has always stuck with me. That's always, like, I emulated that. I wanted to be like that for my family. I wanted to be that kind of man that can take nothing and then make it into something like that. That I truly respected.
So what did your parents do growing up? Like, what were their occupations?
My dad was an engineer, and my mom, she was an entrepreneur. So she, like, just created little businesses here and there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and you guys didn't grow up with a lot of money then?
No. I wouldn't even say we had a lot of money. I think we had, for the most part, we're below average, and then at some point we were mid-level income.
Okay.
Like, we became like a mid-level income family that could have nice things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, obviously, right now you make pretty decent money doing what you do.
Yeah.
How has that changed your life? From, like, how has your thoughts and feelings and relationship towards money itself changed from growing up the way that you grew up, being either lower class or middle class, to being a lifestyle now to where I'm sure you can afford most things that you want?
Yeah.
And you don't probably have to worry about bills now.
Oh, I do. I still do.
Yeah?
To a certain degree, I still do. I don't know. I feel like I used, like, the more money you make, the more bills you come with. And to a point, like, I don't think I have a very healthy relationship with money.
No?
Where it comes to being smart with it, I don't think I'm as smart with my money as I should be.
How so?
My spending habits are more based on impulses rather than strategy and plan. I don't think I budget as well as I should, which ends up putting me in positions where I will have a lot of money, but that money will sort of go down, and then I have to work to earn it all back up, and then I don't make the best decisions with it again. It's like going back down. So that's something I'm now learning. Learning how to make better decisions with my money, better investments. Savings and things like that, like being able to live on 70% of my check or 70% of my income, and then 30% of 10% you have to give back. I believe in the philosophy, if you give, more will come.
Right.
And then 20% you have to make smart investments, and then just let that money sit and continue to work for itself. So I'm not as good as I should be at that, but at least I'm aware of it and I'm working towards it now. What about you?
So now with the income that I make now, obviously, like, this podcast, I don't get anything from. I've invested into it, but this is more of like a future future ROI. Like, yeah, it'd be cool to make this into a business. I'm not in it specifically for the business, but obviously people can make money from podcasts. But I've learned from a very young age of how to live extremely frugal. I didn't grow up at all with any money. I grew up bottom of the food chain, scraping the barrel every chance we could. And I've seen what money can do to people.
Yeah.
I've personally seen the relationship with money and stuff, and growing up, for me, I've kind of taught myself through other people a better philosophy to have, that money isn't the goal. Money isn't, like, I'd say towards the end of my teenagehood, I had a very disgusting mindset, mentality, and feeling towards money.
Wait, what do you mean?
Money pretty much controlled my entire life. Money was everything to me. If I had money, I had everything I needed. All my problems were resolved if I had more money.
Okay.
It ruined a lot of relationships for me. It ruined a lot of opportunity for me. It just, obviously, you know Shark Tank, right?
I do.
There was one line from Kevin O'Leary that always sticks to me, and that's when he says, like, there was like a girl that she's on, and she was saying of how much heart and soul and emotion, everything she put into what she did, and she was like, or his response was, money has no feelings, money has no thoughts, money has no soul. Money does not give a fuck about you.
Mm-hmm.
Money doesn't care about you. Money doesn't care whose pocket it goes into. Money is just money. It's an object. It's a tangible thing. It can get replaced. And so I had to go from having my goals and everything surrounding the thought of making money to, what do I do with that money? Because obviously there's plenty of extremely wealthy people that are the most unsatisfied,
absolutely
unhappy people in this entire world.
Yeah.
Versus other people that don't hardly make anything, but they live the most fun, magical, happy life possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I had to break that correlation of money equals happiness. And I had to learn of, like, okay, I had to make a plan for myself. I'm like, what would I even do if I had this money?
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was younger, I think I told the story before on this podcast, but when I was younger, my dad was on disability. And so I ended up getting a fat check in my account because it was a back-end payment from like 12 years old to 14 years old.
Oh.
It was a couple of years worth of payments every single month that just got hit in my account. And when you give a 16 or 17-year-old that much money with no prior financial discipline or literacy, it doesn't equal a very smart type of thing.
Yeah.
And even with that, I grew up with parents not having the best outlook on money either. My mom, she didn't know how to budget that well, and this isn't a shout towards you either, Mom. But she didn't teach me what financial discipline looked like, and I lived with her most of the time. And my dad, like, I didn't get taught what financial discipline, literacy, or well-being looked like with finances. And I saw the fruit of that labor because I literally went through that entire check in 11 months. It was over $30,000 that I blew through in 11 months.
Wow.
Obviously, a lot of it was me spending on her, like buying her all the stuff that she didn't have when she was a kid. But a lot of it was just spending left and right and left and right and left and right, just because at that time money kind of correlated with happiness for me.
Yeah.
But now it's interesting. Like, now I make probably some of the least money I've ever made in my life right now, because I'm a barista and a bartender, and I just do oddball jobs here and there. Mm-hmm. But I've also learned how to live below my means in that area, to where even if I am making $17,000 a year, I'm able to still make that stretch. I'm able to still do that. And so I don't know. I have definitely a different relationship when it comes to money now.
No, that's awesome too, and I relate to that too, because even when I started doing real estate, that was the first time I started getting like huge amount of money at a time, and I just blew through it. It's just something about having that much money, and you know, you grow up seeing other people having it, and how much love and respect that they get just because they have money, and how certain rules are overlooked because someone has money, and it makes you want that, because you know, if you didn't grow up having an environment that's very loving and nurturing and accepting, it affects you. So I ended up spending because I took some sort of satisfaction in the pride that came from knowing that, oh, okay, now I have this, therefore people will respect me, because if I look this way, I dress that way, I drive that, now people have some sort of respect for me. And there's nothing wrong with thinking that way, but like you said, it's just it doesn't serve the soul. you know, at the end of it, you just end up losing people. You know, you end up losing relationships and being in a tough place. But one thing that I am grateful for is my son being born, because I am like, by nature, I think I struggle with like unworthiness, right? So that's at the core of my being.
Unworthy how?
Unworthiness as in not feeling like I'm good enough to myself.
Okay.
Not feeling that I have enough worth. And in that sense, most of my my fears and insecurities and everything that exists in me, like my pride, my ego, all those things come from that small place where I feel small inside. And sometimes, like you said, money has been the vehicle that I use to sort of try to fill that void. And to a certain degree, there's an aspect of me, I'm very, very well aware that there's an aspect of me, even when I approach acting, that wants to be famous, because I think that maybe that could be.
Right.
But also, why I'm grateful for my son is my son coming into my life at that moment. Sort of just before that moment, I was young. I was young, man. I was playing ball. You know, I was getting attention from women and this and that. So I thought, I'm like, I'm going places. Right. So I sort of carried a certain pride that came with that, a certain ego that came with that. And I identify with the objects that I had. I had a nice car at the time. I used to dress nice, you know, pretty girls, and you get to go to parties. You know, everybody thinks you're cool because you play ball and you're kind of good at it, you know. All that became my identity. So when my son was born, all of that got stripped, right? So all of that was gone, like, because now you don't live for you have to live for someone else. And you didn't have the nice car anymore, you didn't have the nice apartment anymore, you didn't have all these nice things anymore, you're not making money anymore. Like, I was dead broke because I just got out of college, and FAFSA used to give me a little bit of bread. You know what I'm saying? So now I got nothing, and I'm being looked to by her family, you know, my partner and her family, my girl, to be a provider. And I'm 23 years old. I have no idea. I've never done this before. No one has ever shown me the ropes. I've been away from home since I was 14. And all of that gets stripped, and I was kind of forced to have to find who I really am without any of those things. And to the best of it, I was able to sort of now be aware. I'm a proud person. There's an aspect of me that's very proud. There's an aspect of me that that's jealous. There's an aspect of me that's envious. There's an aspect of me that petty and resentful and holds grudges. And all of that is just coming from me not being content with just who I am and how people may perceive it or not. Like that is what my son helped me realize. And I still struggle with those things to a certain degree, depending on how well I'm being towards myself. If I'm holding the promises and the values that I believe are true to me, if I'm upholding them, like it's much easier for me to be content with myself and not give in to those tendencies. But when I'm not, I see myself creeping into those states where you feel the jealousy, you feel the envious. But that's something that I think at the core of it, I've come to realize that to a certain degree, we're all different, but deep down we all kind of are the same. Like we all just want to be loved.
Oh, absolutely.
At the core of it is there's a being in there that doesn't care about rule, race, religion, or anything. That just wants to feel like their existence, it's okay for them to be here, and that they deserve to be loved because they're here the way they are. And that to me has helped me sort of be okay with how I am and where I'm at, as far as what I have, money or not, and I start to realize that, okay, let me focus more on the things that I think would make my soul fulfill, rather than just material gain. It's nice to have those things.
Oh, absolutely.
I won't lie to you. Like, I want to have a nice house. I want to have millions and billions of dollars. I want to, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I would much rather be, wealthy than broke. I'll take that any day. But I also want to be content with myself.
And what brings that? Like, what is your definition then of contentness and that kind of, not success, but what is that definition of, or what would bring that feeling of contentness or fulfillment?
I think what would do that is being able to have a life where I can be at peace with how fucked up I am. Can I cuss?
Yeah, go for it.
Be at peace with how messed up I am, because I do have certain flaws and I have made mistakes and I have done things that are not good.
Right.
And being able to be okay and at peace with myself, regardless of what ends up happening to my material things or to my relationships. Having a life where I feel safe within myself. I think that will make me feel content.
Safe how? Like, safe financially, physically? Like, safe how?
Safe in the sense of being okay with my existence. Like, being at peace. If that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But safe in the sense of not being afraid of myself at my worst.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Because not being afraid of being in the dark, in that dark space in myself. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like the boogeyman in your own mind.
Oh, 100%.
Being able to look at the boogeyman face to face and not feel like I have to die because of it. So,
what parts of yourself then are you most afraid of?
Oh man, I'm afraid of the parts of me that indulge in pleasure.
Ooh, yes.
That's the part of me that I'm most afraid of.
That's a big one.
Because it doesn't have morals. It doesn't have a limit. It doesn't stop. I feel like it's once I start going down that road, there's always one more pleasure that you can go into, and it just keeps getting darker. It's like it's endless.
That's a big one that, especially within like the last, I'd say even like year to year and a half, part of my discipline or part of my journey to this disciplined life is, and that's something, it's also something I want to learn with finance, is delayed gratification. Mm-hmm. Learning to delay that sense of gratification now. Yeah. Like, I can go and spend money on going out to eat and or go spend money here and there on this, or I could save it, build it, and then spend it later on something even better, or just something along those lines. Like, from a lot of the quote-unquote successful people that I've met, that delayed gratification is one of the most powerful things that you can ever get taught. Yeah. That you can ever teach yourself, or that you can ever just be taught by someone else. Is that ability to delay that gratification, because it could be the demise of you. Yeah. Do you need to take that?
So I'll give him a call back.
Okay. But that is a huge thing. Especially I feel like it goes into so many different aspects too, whether that's finances, whether that's sexuality, whether that's...
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that is pleasurable.
Exactly, yeah.
Anything that gives you pleasure in that sense, you know. And that could be everything.
So what is the biggest demise that you have in pleasure?
My biggest vice is definitely sexual pleasure. That's my go-to. That it's almost like a coping mechanism that I developed from a very young age, as a way to feel good when my life is not going well. So whether that is to digital content or real life content, I sometimes use that as a way to escape the displeasure of my current moment. Yeah. And like at the core of it, it comes down to like just not being okay with, like, it came down to as I got old, like I started unveiling, going back in myself and peeling off layers. I started finding out that there's a lot of things that were painful that happened in my childhood, and being a young kid, not knowing how to deal with that kind of pain.
Right.
I sort of just buried it somewhere in my psyche.
Right.
Like, you know, I'm not crying anymore, so I must be good. I don't have to worry about it. Or I adapted a certain personality trait to not ruffle feathers around me. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, you get to a new school. Like, I got to a new school, and people are like, oh, yes, he's a foreigner, whatever, right? So now from there, that hurts, and I don't know how to deal with that. So instead, I'm like, okay, what are the non-foreigners doing? Oh, okay, everybody's wearing. Oh, cool, everybody's wearing that. Cool. So I go to the store next day, get it, and I'm like trying to fit in. But I'm still suffering because that's not who I am. I'm just trying to fit in. You know what I mean? So that pain would still linger in me. Okay. And even when I left that environment or I go somewhere else, it's still in the back of my mind. I was like, why wouldn't they accept me? Like, why was I not good enough for them? And that ties into that whole unworthiness thing that I've been carrying since I was a kid. So now all this pain is like flushing in your mind, and it builds up and it builds up, and now I'm like, man, I need to breathe, and to get away. I need to feel good right now.
Right.
And then boom, that's how I end up going there. So then it's like that's my biggest thing. What's yours?
I would say finances and sexuality for me. Obviously, growing up with not having a lot of like finances and stuff, when you are finally in control of your own, it is very hard to have the discipline to not be like, you know what, I don't want to cook tonight, I'm just going to go out, or I can afford to do this, it's okay. Yeah. So it's also like laziness. Like, money almost creates laziness for me in a way. Yeah. To where, like, being an entrepreneur or being, like, working for myself, if I have money and I can say, like, oh, I can stay home for the day, or I don't have to go and work tonight, or something like that, that's a huge demise for me. And then sexual gratification, sexual desire. I was sexually abused when I was a kid.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I mean, I've seen good and bad come out of it. Obviously, like, I've dealt with things like porn addiction and that kind of stuff. I know obviously there's a lot of controversy around watching porn and the porn industry and all that kind of stuff, but I've personally noticed in myself that something like a porn addiction, it's like a drug. It literally releases the same chemicals in your brain as a drug.
Absolutely, yeah.
As like a stimulant. You release a lot more things like serotonin and stuff when you're watching all that. And it kind of almost numbs you when you do have that sexual relationship or a relationship with anybody. And I've seen that firsthand. I've seen that to where, like, I'll have a partner and we'll do whatever we do. I'll still be addicted to watching porn. And then our sexual relationship starts to deteriorate because I'm watching these other girls of what they can do and their bodies and all this kind of stuff, and that's training my brain almost to a fact of, like, comparison subconsciously. Like, I hate comparing a woman like that, but when you see online of, like, these women that are doing this other stuff, and it's like, oh, that looks like it would feel good. Why can't my girl do that? Or something like that. And so I've seen the deterioration in myself and all that, and obviously, like, after you're done or whatever, your serotonin levels go below baseline, and so you feel even shittier than you do initially. So I've had to deal with that addiction specifically very hard, especially like in the last little while. Like, I was single for like 2 years before I met my current girlfriend, and so during that whole time I've had to go through the different battles of that whole area. And then so it's a mixture of, I'd say, both of those, and then right now a lot of it does come from the laziness factor of 8 months ago, I didn't have a whole lot going on. I was kind of in this feeling of feeling stuck, feeling like I needed more. I was still in finance. Like a year or two ago, I was still doing the whole 9-to-5 thing. And I've always known that I was meant for much more than just a simple 9-to-5 life, you know? And so having to transition everything, I also have severe depression and anxiety and OCD and all this kind of stuff. I know half the population says they have all that stuff too, but for me, it's on another level. And so a lot of times, if I feel too overwhelmed, a lot of times I get that burnout very quickly. That burnout can lead to depression attacks and lead to laziness and stuff. And sometimes all I do want to do is lay in bed for the day, watch TV, and do all this kind of stuff. But then the other part of me is like, well, if you're doing that, then
it's working for you.
You're not working. You're not grinding. You're not hustling. You're not doing this other stuff. And you want to be this successful icon that you say you want to, but yet you're still in bed being a lazy piece of shit. And there's that whole thing that fight. It pisses my girlfriend off because she's like, just take care of yourself, do something that you enjoy. And for me, I'm like, I can't though. Like, what I enjoy is being able to provide a life for somebody else, being able to serve someone else, or being able to do the stuff that normal people can't do. And we were literally just having that conversation actually yesterday with like, what is something fun that you can do for yourself that has no gain, like financial or physical, like just gain? It's just something that's just happy. And I was like, I literally can't think of anything because my whole life has been centered around that whole building myself up, building my life, building my future, wealth, body, everything like that. And so it's like, I can't think of a single thing that's just like a fun, quote unquote, hobby, you know? But that's where I think the balance needs to come from, is because you need to be able to have those certain outlets. You need to be able, because I've seen my mental health personally go up and down like crazy with focusing on work 24/7, focusing, because I have 3 or 4 different careers right now. And so no matter what I'm doing, I'm always focusing on a career. If I'm not, I'll take some days where it's like a self-care day kind of thing, spend some time, meditate, clean, take care of the body and stuff. But that is like my personal time. If it's not that, then I'm trying to balance the career. I'm trying to balance still having somewhat of a social life, you know? And so, I don't know, there's a lot of stuff that's improved since going through this whole path, but there's still a lot of things that I do struggle with myself. And it's learning how to get through that. That has been like the biggest challenge. But it's actually getting through it. Not just thinking you got through it. Not just putting a coat level on and saying, oh, this is good. But actually, like, I started doing therapy a year ago. Best decision I could have ever made. Because I'm learning so much more about myself now, especially having a traumatic childhood. That I'm like, I didn't even know that was affecting me still. You know? Having stuff like that is a huge...
The mind is powerful, man. It's going to hide things. Like, because I think the brain is designed to avoid pain. So,
100%.
So it's fine. It finds interesting ways of like bearing memories and experiences and pain. That you don't even think about it on a day-to-day basis. And when you do stuff like therapy, it helps you connect with those aspects of yourself. And I relate to that too, because like just recently I was like, even now it's like I was home. I'm like, man, I need to be doing something.
Exactly.
Like, I need to get somewhere. It's like I always feel like that, and I think what I've come to realize, and I started giving myself grace as well, is that I've started believing that I am both. Like, I don't think I'm a good or a bad person. I think I aspire to be a good person. But I know I'm capable of very bad things. If, like, under the right circumstances, I could do some fucked up shit. I know that.
100%.
Right?
100%.
But I know that also, being my natural self, I'm more inclined to serving others and having happiness and joy and love, and that's my natural pull. I'm drawn towards that, and I just try to live in a way that my good overweights the bad every single day. But one thing that I have learned for myself, and at some point I had decided I'm not gonna figure things out based on what others tell me. I'm just gonna like go within myself, block out every rule, moral, whatever, religion, just stop all of that and just kind of assess who I am, and just look at it, just face all of it. And that created a lot of like anxiety. Like, I had anxiety attacks, and it messed me up. I went through a depression where I didn't want to get off my couch for months. I was just sitting there, and my financial life took a toll on that. My family life took a toll on that, right? but I felt like I needed to do that, because in doing that, I got to a place where I was like, okay, this is how fucked up I can be.
Right.
This is my darkness, and I'm gonna live with it. It's because before that, all I looked for was a pill to get rid of it. Like I was trying to just find a knife that can just cut that piece of me out, so I never have to deal with it again.
Right.
But then some part of me realized that the simple idea of trying to get rid of myself was the very thing that was driving the need. Like me trying to like get rid of that aspect of me was the very thing that was leading me to come right back full circle.
So how'd you break the circle?
Accepted it.
Okay.
Like I got to a point where I was like, this is who I am, because I also went to a child abuse situation.
Right.
And I've rejected that aspect of me because of the connotation that revolves around sexuality and being seen as gay.
Right.
So being able to just accept that that is something that happened to me, that is a part of me. It's who I am. I can't hide it.
Right.
I'm not gonna try to get rid of it to look cool to someone else. I'm not gonna try to diminish things about me that are considered as wrong or flawed, because I want someone to validate me and approve of me, or I want society to validate me and approve of me. And I was just like, this is who I am. This is what I've been through. These are the things that I've done, that I'm proud of, that I'm not proud of. It's a part of me, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And moving forward, I know what happened. I know what it is, and I'm just going to try to be what I always wanted someone to be for me, what I always wanted my mom to be for me, what I always wanted my dad to be for me, right? And I gave it almost became a thing with myself where I had to like almost create like a pact with myself where I'm like, moving forward, this is what I want to do for you. I'm gonna mess up because I'm so used to living this other way.
Yeah.
But I will keep trying, and I will stay committed to this journey, even if I don't get there. But I promise that every single day, if I fuck up, I will try again, and I will make it right. And I'll try to be better for me than anyone else could have ever been for me. And that has given me peace, in the sense that I still I struggled with porn as well. But the difference is that I still do watch porn, but I am aware that when I do watch it, it's a symptom of something else.
Right.
Like I'm aware that if I'm relying on it right now, that means that there is something that I'm running from. And that brings me back to myself, where I'm like, I need to go check in with me.
Yeah.
And I go back and I'm like, okay, what am I running from? And I'm running from the fear that I'm struggling financially and I don't know if I'm going to get out of it.
Yeah.
And as much as I'm not a very religious person, I'm not going to blow up on you, but that's where like I've found my personal relationship with God, where it's like the fear of the unknown is what I call my God. My God thinks like I'm not supposed to know what's gonna happen. Like I'm gonna leave it to the man above. I'm gonna trust him, and that's where my relationship happens there. But that I don't always do that. Sometimes when that fear comes up, my instinct from years and years is like, we gotta feel good right now.
Yeah.
But being gracious to myself and understanding that I am flawed. I am not going to be perfect, even if I try. There's no way for me to undo the things that have happened to me. There's no way for me to undo the hurt that I've caused to people. But I recognize it, and moving forward, what I choose to do is go the other way as best as I can. And when I do fall short, I'll recognize that, and then just try again.
And that's a part that I feel like a lot of people get stuck on.
Yeah.
Is they don't realize that it's not a linear line. No matter what it is.
Yeah.
But especially when you're fighting your own faults or fighting your own things like that.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says, it's never going to be a linear line.
No.
It's going to be up. You're going to have days where you feel on top of the world with it. Like, especially with things like addiction. You're going to have days where like, I don't even know why I was addicted in the first place. But then you have other days where like, all I want is this. and like that's a huge, like I used to be a smoker. That was a huge thing with cigarettes. Still is. Like if I'm around too many people that are smoking cigarettes or vaping or something, the urge to want to, hey, can I take a hit? Or hey, can I have a cigarette or something? Like even my dad, he smokes, and whenever I'm around him, it does still, like in my head, I'm like, oh, all I have to do is probably ask him for a cigarette. But then I'm like, I'm failing myself at that point.
Yeah.
And so like I don't give into it, but you're always going to have these downward falls a little bit. You're going to have these days to where you feel like you're at the end, and then even if you do, sometimes you do fall short of it. Sometimes you do give in.
Yeah.
But it's that ability to come back up, forgive yourself first, and be like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm a human fucking being.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not perfect. I fall short.
Exactly.
It's a human trait. It's a human quality. It's that ability to forgive yourself and be like, the only thing I can do from here is move forward. The only thing I can do here is not make that mistake again. Learn from it. There's another quote that was like, the past is supposed to be a lesson. It's not a prison cell.
Yeah.
Don't stay in there.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a lesson learned for the future, for your future self. As long as you can learn from your mistakes, it's okay to make mistakes.
Yep.
That's a whole thing with like failure and living these successful lives or whatever is even successful to you, is the ability to look at yourself. Like I have a huge thing with me to where I have to be productive like every single day. If I don't do something productive or if I don't do this, I feel like shit.
Yeah.
And the amount of times that like it'll be like 3 o'clock and I'm like, I didn't do shit today.
Yeah.
And like I start getting on my ass about it. I give myself that 5 or 10 minutes of like kind of beating myself up a little bit, like, you're such a lazy piece of shit, blah, 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 do whatever I need to do. But then I'm like, you know what? I can't do anything for the time that I did lose today, but I can move forward and tomorrow make it even better. I can move forward and tomorrow make it an even more productive day.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I feel like that is a thing that some people just forget to do for themselves, is accept that human aspect, accept that humanity that's still left in them, that does have faults, that does fall short sometimes.
I mean, a lot of that has to do with the world that we live in.
Yeah.
Like we don't live in a world that encourages that.
Oh,
we live in a world that's picture perfect cut. Like you have to, like from a young age, we're taught that we have to fit in.
Right.
Like this is how you have to look. Like you start to pick up from just watching. Like when you do this, people praise you. When you have this, people praise you. When you do this, you're less likely to get hurt. And like to your point, it's like at some point on this path for me, it clicked for me where it's like it's just my perspective on things.
100%.
And if I can get to a point where I can understand enough to see whatever it is that I'm dealing with differently, it affects me differently.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like I got to a point where I started to look at everything that I did that was hurtful to myself. I was like, I'm not doing it because I have a problem. I was like, everything, whether like it changed, like it took me to the point, even when I thought about, taking my own life, I was like, I'm not trying to do this because I hate myself. It's like in some twisted way, that is the best way that I try to show myself love in that moment.
Wow.
Like I'm suffering so much, and the best way for me to resolve that suffering out of love for myself is to end it. That flipped my mind, because I started to see that even when whenever I'm being lazy, whenever I'm dealing with an addiction, it's my way of trying to love myself out of my difficult fear, pain that I'm carrying, that I don't know how to deal with.
Right.
So it clicked for me. I was like, all I'm trying to do is love myself. It's just that I was never taught how to do it the right way to do it.
Yeah.
And once that clicked for me, I started approaching things differently, where it's like, yes, John, we can, but that's not gonna help us. Like, I know you want to love me, so almost like I have to teach myself how to be loving to myself, and that has changed my own inner dialogue, and that has changed how I approach things, even with acting. Like, from a previous perspective, I'll go like, I gotta work harder than everybody else.
Yeah.
But now when I wake up in the morning, I just tell myself, it's like, I'm investing
Right.
in myself. So I just gotta get myself closer to that moment where I get to play that character that I want. And that sort of takes it away from the comparison. It takes it away from the pressure of feeling like I need to do better than so and so. But then I'll get on Instagram and then I'll see you doing something. I'll see David doing something, right? I'll see Gino is doing something. And I'm like, God, man, I want it here, I want it now. But then that's like, even then, that's me trying to find a way to resolve the fear that I'm afraid that I don't think I'm good enough that it's going to happen for me.
Yeah.
Right. And being able to just understand that that is a part of me, like that aspect of me that does that is me.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean? And that's the same aspect that needs to feel, that needs to indulge. So so that's what I'm saying. That dark side was me being able to accept that.
Yeah.
Like I am the guy that's gonna be scared when I see everybody else around me doing better, and I'm gonna want to fit in. I'm gonna want to feel just as good as everyone else.
Yeah.
And being able to recognize that in myself makes me go, oh, okay, no, we're good.
It's funny
we're on our own path.
Yeah.
Like everybody else is doing good and be happy for them. Like now that feeling in me, I'm like, oh man, I'm happy for you. Good for you, man.
Yeah.
And it's like, chill, John. Our turn is coming. You'll get
Right.
yours. Just focus on what you got to do today. You know.
It's funny that you mentioned that thing on Instagram, because that's a huge thing, especially as an actor. I feel like a lot of us suffer with.
Yeah.
But no one mentions it. The fact that like you can go on Instagram and I see like
Yeah.
a bunch of my friends that I've met on set and like acting friends that I have, they're all picking up these huge projects or just getting to be part of these awesome productions, and all I could think of was like, well, why couldn't I be in it?
Yeah.
Why was I chosen to be in this production?
Yeah.
Why? Like, was there someone that's better than me?
Yeah.
Was there just not a part in it
Yeah.
for me? Like that feeling of envy, like especially in the career that we're in.
Yeah.
That feeling of envy is such like a magnetic thing. It feels
It
like.
It is.
And like when I first got into this, I thought that was just me. I was like, oh, no one else feels jealous. No one else feels like this. But then the more you talk to people, the more it's like, no, this is a jealousy field. This whole field is filled with people that are jealous of everybody.
We all do it. And to a certain, like to your point, it's like I have to check myself sometimes because I know that when I post certain things, I'm like, I know so and so will see it. I'm just trying to let y'all know that, you know, I'm doing something, you know what I mean? But I have to check myself, but also not punishing myself for being that way, because it's normal. It's normal for you to experience that because you're human. Right. You know, I think you have more power over it when you can recognize that you do it, because then you know when you have to stop. Right. You know that you're not gonna blame someone else for where you're at. Like I like to recognize, and the reason why I'm speaking it out loud is because I think that when I say it, I'm less likely to act on it. If that makes sense. Yeah. Like if I can admit that I am a jealous person, then I can call myself out when I'm being jealous of someone else.
You're like physically calling yourself out.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that keeps me in check and helps me now appreciate what others are doing without letting that jealousy blind me and make 100%. Make it, because I think at the end of the day, it's the relationships that's gonna get you there. Oh, absolutely. And even us sitting here now, like I have love for you, but I also know that there's an aspect of me that wants to compete with you. Exactly. And, you know what I'm saying? So so that I know that exists in me, and being able to keep it in check and be like, I don't want to compete with you because of you. Right. I want to compete with you because that aspect of me feels small. Yeah. And no, it's the same thing with me. And that's not because of you. You didn't do anything to me. Exactly. But it's just where I came from and the things that I've been carrying with me. And being able to be like, hey, chill. Like, like checking yourself. It's not about that. I get it. You're feeling that way right now, but you're feeling this way because we're just not doing what we need to do for ourselves. Oh, 100%. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing too, is that the accountability that comes with that mind changing. Like once that switch flipped for me, I became very aware that everything that I experience and feel and where I'm gonna end up in my life is not because of anybody else but me. And knowing that if I don't make peace with myself, if I don't become very, very aware and comfortable with the destructive aspect of myself, even if I'm not aware when they're acting, it's still me.
Right.
So I can't blame others because I wasn't aware of the destructive things that I was carrying, that I was doing.
Yeah.
So now that I'm aware of it, I'm able to be like, okay, John, if it's all up to us, then when I'm laying on the bed watching TV, it's like, you need to be working right now. But then I have to ask myself, I'm like, well, what was I supposed to do today? Have I done what I was supposed to do today? Yes. Do I have more to give? No. I reached my cap. Like, that's the thing too.
Yeah. Realizing
that, yes, I can become great one day, but I'm a human being that has a cap. Like, I have a willpower cap every day. And being okay with where that willpower cap is at that stage of my life. And if because of my responsibilities, that willpower means that I can only put out 3 self-tapes that day, it's okay.
Right,
It's okay to put out those 3 self. Even if Alex just put out 7, even if David just booked the feature film from putting 10, it's okay for me to put out my 4 today.
Right.
Because just because I put out 4 today does not mean that that's all I'm ever gonna do.
Right.
It just means that that's what I could do today, and that's okay.
That was your energy level for that day.
And that's
it doesn't
okay.
mean that's defining who you are.
Yeah.
But that's what your body says. That's what we can do today. Tomorrow we could do more.
Yeah.
The next day we could do even more.
Exactly.
But today, that's what we're doing.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. And you think about it, like you said, balance in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like if you go to the gym and you're only going up and you never release, like, you're not gonna grow.
Right.
Because the growth comes from 1 rep. You have to let go, rest, and then you do another rep.
Right.
So the rest is just as important as the work. And I think like social media creates that unconscious pressure that you have to work 24/7.
Oh, 100%.
Else you're not gonna succeed. That's the only way to win. You have to work for 78 hours a week.
Yeah.
But what I think even great people will tell you is that they've found the balance between when to rest and when to work.
Absolutely.
Or they set up their life in such a way that them working 72 hours a week is not taking away from anything else in their lives.
Yeah.
And they still have balance.
But then they've also had their own sacrifices that they've had to do to be able to work that 70 plus hours a week.
Yeah.
That maybe you wouldn't want to sacrifice.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't hang out with their family at all.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't watch any movies. Maybe they don't do this. Like, that is what they're thinking. So they sacrifice something too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that can be so many different things. Like for me, it's like my social life. I don't really have one.
Yeah.
Like I don't really have like people that reach out to me and say, hey, let's go to the club, or let's go drink beer. Like, I almost blame myself for it to a fault where I'm like, you need to have more friends, man. but it's like I've figured out what it is that I value for me.
Yeah.
And what it is that if I had this in my life, I'll be okay.
Right.
I found that for me. I took the time to figure out what that is for me.
That's awesome.
And then I just focus on that. I pour my whole life energy into it.
Yeah.
And it just so happens to be because for me, I left home early. I was always on my own.
Yeah.
So I'm good. Like, I'm good being by myself because I grew up that way. Right. So if I grew up around my family, I don't think I would trade that. I think I would value that. I would
100%
prioritize that. But I've been a lone wolf my whole life, so I thrive when I'm alone. Right. So I'm okay with sacrificing friendships, and not friendships, but I have friends.
Like relationships in general.
But like the quality time that, like, relationships that take too much away from the things that I think bring me joy.
Right.
And being able to say that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what works for me. And I think that is very, very different and unique for every person, because I think every person values things differently.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Is it the same for you?
Yeah, no, it's a very similar aspect. I mean, I used to be an extremely social person to where I only got to accept myself if other people accepted me too. Mm-hmm. I only was energized or was okay or happy when I had the company of others, and I've had to take a long time to be able to accept myself or be able to be okay being by myself and loving being by myself, and be willing not to just accept anybody into my friend group or into my inner circle or into like my social aspect.
Yeah.
Being able to filter out and be okay with filtering out people like, oh, this person's really nice. I like them a lot. We get along, but they don't have the aspects I want to hang out with. And it's not to like judge them or anything in like a negative way, but I mean the classic saying, you're the 5 people you spend the most time with. And for me, that was a huge thing. I'm like, okay, well, yes, I can hang out with this person, but what does their life look like? What is their attributes? What is their desires?
Yeah.
What do they chase the hardest in life?
Yeah.
And do I want to be aligned with that?
Yeah. Does it add or take away from?
Is
from
it
what you want?
Is this person chasing their careers just as hard as I'm chasing my careers? Are they trying to take care of themselves as hard as I'm trying to take care of myself?
Yeah.
Or are they just chasing this gratitude? Are they just chasing this happiness feeling? Are they just chasing? And it's not even like, oh, I don't want to be happy. It's, are they practicing on truly loving themselves, or are they just doing what feels good in the moment and they don't give a shit about what goes on? And so I've had to take a lot of time to look at the friends that I've had and be like, okay, which ones are doing this, or which ones are aligning their lives in a way that's I can either contribute to myself, or they can we can contribute to each other instead of one of us holding the other person back. Because for me, I'm sorry, I'm not going to hang out with somebody. I feel like that hanging out with you, even if I don't care if we're not at the same level. That's not what life is. Yeah. But if it's to a point to where we're hanging out, I don't see the fact I can rub off on you, and I can't help you get higher, and then you help me, or like us helping us both. And instead, it's a relationship of you constantly trying to bring me back. For me, I'm like, that's not something I'm willing to put energy into. Yeah. And so that whole social aspect, because I used to not give a shit about that. I used to be the guy that was just like, I'll hang out with everybody and anybody. If my day can be surrounded by just constantly hanging out with people all day and stuff, awesome. But then I was like, I'm not building anything though. I'm hanging out with these people, and then 2 years later, we're not friends anymore for whatever reason. And like, that was so much time that I wasted with that person, and like, I don't regret it, but it was like, I don't know. There's also these other people that I could have been hanging out with instead. That now I see they're so much farther. They've built themselves a lot higher. And I'm like, if I would have hung out with them instead, who knows where I would be today. And it was kind of like going into that aspect. And I know that makes me sound like a judgmental asshole. And stuff.
I mean, I understand that, because I looked at it from that lens too. Yeah, I've looked at it from that lens too.
Like, there's definitely, even in the acting industry, there's a lot of people I see that I'm like, you say you're an actor, but I don't see the energy or effort or practice you're putting into it. But then I see other people, like, you are one of the people I see that is taking your craft seriously, that does take their life seriously. And that's why I've continued to even like talk to you or try to build a relationship, because you're one of the people that I see that's like, priorities are lining up in a way that my priorities line up. Same. And that's something I'm like, okay, awesome. That's someone I want to spend more time with. Versus other people, I'm like, you're kind of just fucking around at this point. You say you want to be an actor, but I don't see it. I'm not going to judge you, but from what I see, that's not something I want to be part of.
No, I relate to that 100%, because once you know where you're going, it becomes very evident who you should have around you.
And it affects anything from friendships to even romantic relationships.
Even romantic relationships,
people that, like,
absolutely.
I've gone on dates with or something, and then when we're talking, I'm like, we don't line up. I'm sorry, like, it's nothing against you. It's just, I need some, like, I know almost the kind of person that I would click with, or that I would, like, I need somebody that wants this out of me. I don't want somebody that's content just living in a little shitty apartment for the rest of our lives and worrying paycheck to paycheck. I want somebody that's like, I want this, and that's going to help push me to do better.
Absolutely.
And I can push them to do better. Or that mixed with, like, my girlfriend now, she helps me with enjoying life more, being more present, which is something I have the biggest difficulty with. I cannot be present for anything. I'm living in the future 24/7. And so she helps me with an aspect of being present, enjoying life, having fun, but also being an adult, taking care of yourself, taking care of others, being passionate about others. And so it's like finding that person that can also give you balance.
To your point, balance, and that's exactly what I was gonna touch on when I heard you say that, because that clicked in my head, that balance it comes down to balance for everything. Just having balance, even with relationships, being able to just balance the relationships, because I think that everybody is at a different self-awareness point in their journey,
right?
And sometimes there's no, I don't think that for me, I used to approach things from the perspective of like, okay, this is where I'm going. I need to start rallying people around me to make sure that we're all going in the same direction.
Yeah.
But I come to find out that the hardest thing to do is to change someone. Like it's much easier to let someone be who they are than try to change them into becoming someone that they don't want to be. And if you're a social person, that's a huge sacrifice, letting go of social. If not by nature, you're just someone that clicks with people and your energy vibes well with other people, then it's a huge sacrifice. You know, it's a huge sacrifice, and I think that at the core of it is I've learned about myself that I'm capable of building a relationship with anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But I also am aware that in order to give myself the life that I want to have, I won't be able to. Not because of them, not because of who they are, because I feel like everybody has something to offer.
Oh, 100%.
Regardless of what stage they're at in their journey.
Yeah.
But it's almost a selfish thing that I have to decide for myself, where it's like I'm willing to befriend and be loving, but this is where I'm going, this is where I want to go, and it's okay for me to put that first for myself.
Yeah.
And that's how I approach it. Where it's I don't know. I've just come to a place where I try to focus more on me than what everybody else does, and I think that's what helps me have peace, because then I can let everybody else be themselves.
Yeah.
And because I feel like there's a reason why they are the way they are in that moment. Because when I look back on my life, if I was to meet myself when I was younger, I probably, like, if I approach it from that perspective, I probably would let myself fall. And I want to be the guy that comes and taps me on the shoulder and says, "Hey, you're good. I love you.
Yeah.
And I understand where you're at. But just know that there's also this side of the fence. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you do you. Call me when you need me. I'm gonna be on that side of the fence. Right. So, because I feel like it's more likely that you'll be in a world where people are just like, I'm not gonna talk to him. I don't mess with him. But I think sometimes, like, people are in a certain stage of life just because they're not aware, and I've come to realize that the best way to help someone else become the best version of themselves is not tell them, but it's for you to just become the best version of yourself. And that will unconsciously give them permission to do the same. And in doing that, I think you may not need to cut people out of your life. But you'll find that you start to attract like-minded individuals.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, man.
Well, John, I feel like we could talk for hours on end, and I definitely appreciate you taking the time to come on today and share this other perspective. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And
absolutely.
With that being said, I'll let you do your little outro that I told you about earlier.
All right, my name is John Pene, and I have been unmasked.
Awesome. Heck yeah. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you. And I'm definitely going to have you on in the future so we can continue everything.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to see what you do with your career.
Yes.
And hopefully we're at different stages where we can be excited and talk about some new stuff we've been doing.
Absolutely.
And that'll be dope.
All right, man. Thank you again.
Appreciate you.
All right. We'll see you guys later.
All right. One.